The dim light flickered, casting long shadows on Cody's face. His eyes, usually bright and full of life, held a haunted look. His voice, rough with exhaustion and fear, trembled as he spoke directly into the camera. "Hey, everyone," he began, forcing a brave smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. "I wish I could say today was a good birthday." His voice trailed off, the weight of the situation pressing down on him. It was supposed to be a day of celebration, a day filled with laughter and joy. Instead, it had become a desperate fight for survival, a terrifying struggle against the relentless power of nature. The mountainside home he shared with the love of his life, Jess, was slowly being swallowed by the earth itself. Cody swallowed hard, the lump in his throat almost choking him. He thought of Jess, her face pale but composed, her hand clutching his with a strength that betrayed her fear. He had to stay strong for her. Outside, the storm raged on, a symphony of destruction orchestrated by the mountain itself. The air was thick with the smell of pine and damp earth, a scent that would forever be etched in Cody's memory. The relentless rain had transformed the once gentle slopes into a raging torrent of mud and debris, a hungry beast that devoured everything in its path. The once familiar sounds of the forest, the chirping of crickets, the rustling of leaves, had been replaced by a cacophony of terror. The deafening roar of the mudslide echoed through the valleys, a constant reminder of the immense power that held them captive. Trees that had stood for centuries, their roots anchored deep within the mountain, snapped like twigs. Cody and Jess were trapped, their escape route cut off by a treacherous chasm where their driveway had once stood. Fear, cold and sharp, clawed at the edges of Cody's mind, but he refused to let it paralyze him. He had to keep fighting. Through the deafening roar of the storm, Cody could hear other sounds. Sounds that chilled him to the bone, even as they sparked a flicker of desperate hope within him. Whispered prayers, choked with sobs, reached him on the wind. Pleas for mercy directed towards a heaven that seemed impossibly distant. He heard the frantic barking of a dog, its loyalty unwavering even in the face of unimaginable terror. And then, cutting through the darkness like shards of glass, came the screams. Children's voices, high-pitched and filled with a terror that made Cody's blood run cold, pierced the night. They were so close, their cries a stark reminder that they were not alone in this nightmare. Each shriek of fear was like a hammer blow to Cody's heart, fueling his determination to survive. He had to believe that someone would hear their cries, that help would arrive before it was too late. Every muscle in Cody's body was taut with fear and adrenaline. He strained to listen for any sign of life beyond the storm. But there was nothing, only the relentless pounding of rain and the groans of their home. The silence was almost as unnerving as the storm itself. No sirens pierced the darkness. No rescue helicopter broke through the silence. Cody glanced at his phone. The battery icon blinked ominously. Just when the despair threatened to consume him, a glimmer of light pierced the darkness. It was faint, a tiny spark flickering in the distance, but it was enough to ignite a flare of hope in Cody's chest. He gripped Jess's hand, his eyes wide with a mix of fear and desperate hope. "Jess, look," he exclaimed, pointing towards the window. "Over there. Do you see that?" Jess, her face pale but stoic, followed his gaze. The light flickered again, a beacon of defiance against the encroaching darkness. Could it be a rescue team? Had their prayers finally been answered? But as quickly as the hope had surfaced, it was tempered by a chilling realization. The light, though getting closer, was still a considerable distance away, and between them lay a treacherous landscape transformed by the mudslide into a raging torrent of debris and destruction. Even if it was a rescue team, could they possibly reach them in time? And then, cutting through the roar of the wind and rain, came the sound that turned Cody's blood to ice. It was faint, barely audible over the storm, but unmistakable. A child's cry, high-pitched and filled with terror. The sound sent a shiver down Cody's spine, a visceral reminder of the countless souls trapped in this nightmare. Could he, in good conscience, sit here and wait for a rescue that might never come while others, so close, cried out for help? Jess, her eyes reflecting the flickering light of his phone, looked at Cody, her gaze filled with a love that transcended the fear gripping their hearts. He saw the unspoken question in her eyes, the fear that mirrored his own. She knew him, knew the battle raging within him, the primal urge to answer those desperate cries for help. "Cody," she whispered, her voice barely audible above the storm's fury. "We have to stay together. We promised." He knew what she was referring to. 10 years ago, standing hand in hand on the shores of Lake Lure, they had vowed to face whatever life threw their way, together. They had built a life on that promise, a life filled with laughter, adventure, and a love that had only deepened with each passing year. Cody closed his eyes, memories of their life in Asheville washing over him like a warm wave against the cold reality of their situation. He remembered their arrival in this mountain town, drawn by its beauty, its vibrant energy, and the promise of a simpler life. He recalled the joy of finding their dream home, a rustic cabin nestled high in the Blue Ridge Mountains, its windows framing breathtaking views of the valley below. They had poured their hearts and souls into making it their own, transforming it into a sanctuary, a haven from the chaos of the world. Now, as the very ground beneath their feet crumbled, those memories felt like ghosts, haunting him with the life they had built, the life that was slipping away with each passing moment. "I can't lose you, Jess," he choked out, his voice thick with emotion. "But those kids, they need help. I can't just sit here and—" His words were cut short by a deafening crash, the sound of another section of their home succumbing to the relentless onslaught of mud and debris. The room shook violently, and for a terrifying moment, Cody thought they were going down with it. He pulled Jess close, shielding her body with his own, bracing for the impact. But the collapse never came. They were still alive, but for how long? Looking into Jess's tear-streaked face, he knew what he had to do. He had to at least try. "Remember that first hike, Jess?" Cody asked, his voice a low rumble against the cacophony of the storm. He sought solace in shared memories, a lifeline to their shared past as their present crumbled around them. Jess, her hand trembling slightly in his, offered a wan smile. Her eyes, reflecting the flickering light of his phone and the distant, desperate hope that someone would see it. "How could I forget?" she replied, her voice thin but steady. "We were so unprepared. Just a couple of city slickers with a map, and more enthusiasm than sense." A soft laugh escaped her lips, the sound fragile but precious in the face of the storm's fury. They had fallen in love with Asheville on that trip, captivated by the majesty of the Blue Ridge Mountains and the promise of a life lived closer to nature's embrace. "We talked about this place for months," Cody continued, his gaze drifting to the window, now just a canvas for the relentless onslaught of rain and wind. He could almost see their younger selves, sitting on their tiny apartment balcony, their faces tilted towards the night sky, their voices hushed as they whispered their dreams of a future amidst the mountains. They had pored over countless real estate listings, their excitement growing with each passing week. They had envisioned cozy evenings by the fireplace, mugs of hot cocoa warming their hands as they watched snow fall softly outside. They had dreamed of lazy Sunday mornings spent hiking through sun-dappled forests, their laughter echoing through the trees. Now, as the storm raged around them, those dreams felt both painfully distant and achingly close. Cody felt a tear trace a path down his cheek, a single salty drop lost against the backdrop of his unshaven face. He had never cried easily, but the weight of their situation, the potential loss of everything they had worked for, threatened to crush him. Still, he knew he couldn't afford to succumb to despair, not while Jess needed him. Not while those cries for help still echoed in his ears. "We can't give up hope, Jess," he murmured, squeezing her hand, drawing strength from her unwavering presence. He knew that staying put, waiting for a rescue that might never come, was the logical choice. The storm showed no signs of abating, and venturing out into the maelstrom of mud and debris was a gamble with their lives. But logic warred with his conscience. He had to at least try. Cody took a deep breath, the air catching in his chest, thick with the smell of damp earth and the metallic tang of fear. He knew the risks. He knew that venturing out into that raging torrent of mud and debris was akin to tempting fate itself. But he also knew he couldn't live with himself if he didn't at least try. "I'm not asking for prayers for me," he said, his voice hoarse with emotion, his gaze fixed on the camera lens as if it were the eyes of the world. "No. Please, pray for Jess. Pray for those kids I hear out there in the darkness, their little voices crying out, lost in the storm." Memories flooded his mind, Images of his childhood, of his family, the people who had shaped him into the man he was today. His brother, Jamie, his constant companion, his partner in crime, his confidant. He pictured their childhood home, their laughter echoing through the halls, their bond unbreakable. He thought of his mother, Sheila, her gentle touch, her unwavering love, the way her eyes always seemed to see right through him, straight to his heart. And his father, Randy, a man of few words but boundless love, his gruff exterior hiding a heart of gold. To Jamie, Mom, Pops, Cody whispered, his voice thick with unshed tears. Thank you. Thank you for everything. He glanced at Jess, her hand resting lightly on his arm, her touch a lifeline in the storm. He leaned down, pressing a kiss to her forehead, the taste of salt and tears mingling on his lips. Happy birthday to me, I guess, he murmured, a wry smile touching his lips. Even in the face of such devastation, he felt gratitude for the life he had lived, for the love he had found. He would face this challenge with courage, compassion, and an unwavering belief in the power of hope. The phone clattered to the floor, its light extinguished, leaving Cody and Jess enveloped in the oppressive darkness of the raging storm. The silence that followed was deafening, amplifying the relentless pounding of rain against the roof and the groaning timbers of their home, straining against the relentless assault of mud and debris. Cody's words, mere seconds ago, filled with a desperate hope that someone, somewhere, might hear his plea, now hung heavy in the air, unanswered, swallowed by the void. Had his message even made it through the storm-ravaged network, a digital bottle cast adrift in a sea of static and broken connections? Or had it died with the phone, their story left untold, their fate unknown? He thought of his brother, Jamie, picturing him scrolling through social media, his heart skipping a beat as he saw Cody's face, his name. Would Jamie feel the weight of his words, the unspoken farewell, the love and gratitude that transcended the miles separating them? Beside him, Jess stirred, her hand reaching out, finding his in the darkness, their fingers intertwining, a silent conversation of love and fear and shared hope. He squeezed her hand gently, drawing strength from her presence, a beacon of warmth and light in the heart of the storm. He wanted to tell her that everything would be all right, that they would weather this storm as they had weathered every other challenge life had thrown their way. But the words wouldn't come. Because deep down, beneath the layers of hope and determination, a chilling fear gnawed at his resolve. What if this was it? What if their story ended here, buried beneath tons of mud and the wreckage of their dreams? He pushed the thought away, refusing to give in to despair. He had made a promise to Jess, a vow to face whatever life threw their way, together. And he would honor that promise, until his dying breath. As the storm raged on, Cody closed his eyes, drawing strength from the love that surrounded him. He thought of his parents, their faces etched with worry, their hearts breaking. He thought of his friends, their laughter echoing in his ears, their unwavering support. And he thought of those children, their cries for help still ringing in his ears. He didn't know if he could save them, but he would face whatever lay ahead with courage and compassion. A beacon of hope guiding us through the storm.